So how you feel about Silksong might color how you read the title of this video. Silksong was overwhelming, laudatory, or Silksong was overwhelming, derogatory. If you watched my other Silksong videos, you probably know I mean it in a laudatory way, even though my last video was a criticism that got me ratioed in the comments. Thanks for that, Gus Leffers 9265, wherever you are. Now that I've finished Silksong, I can say it was overwhelming the same way an 8-year-old me considered Disneyland overwhelming. And while I know Splash Mountain doesn't have a bile water beneath it, Team Cherry packed so much content and secrets into Pharloom that when paired with an unforgiving difficulty made it a lot of fun to take in and overcome. In fact, I'd call it the most overwhelming and therefore one of the most rewarding Metroidvania I've played for a handful of reasons. First and foremost is how Silksong doesn't follow the usual Metroidvania structure, subverting expectations of how things work. Typically, you'd explore one area, fight a boss, grab an item or ability, and move on to the next area while only backtracking to reach a couple hidden spots when you get another item or ability further into the castle or alien planet that you're trapped in or on. There's almost a rhythm to it. The original Hollow Knight also didn't follow this structure, but Deepness was much less intimidating than Pharloom in my opinion, as it was a bit smaller and clearly Team Cherry has learned some sadistic new tricks over the last 8 years. Silksong as a whole doesn't follow the structural norms of the genre. You enter areas that you cannot progress through until finding an obscure item, like the key for the slab, which is an area you can arrive in rather early, or the dark, twisting bile water that you can't even get the map in if you don't have the double jump. This makes you wonder if you missed some breakable wall or hidden route somewhere within. I swear I spent half my 80-ish hour runtime whacking random walls and jumping up into darkened corners. Other areas like Hunter's March and the Deep Docks blend together without a definitive boss fight guarding the Silk Dash ability tucked between them. Lace does count as the Deep Docks boss, I suppose, but I hear you can completely skip that fight if you manage to make your way up to the blasted steps first. Then there's the whole Citadel that takes up most of Act 2 with several conjoining areas that you can make your way through pretty much at any time. It's almost open world at that point. Point is, one of the best and most overwhelming things about Silksong is you're never really sure if you've found and done everything in an area, where other Metroidvania are much more clear about this. This can be paralyzing. When I first visited Hunter's March, I was sure I missed something important as I bounced around it again and again looking for anything concrete to show me it was fine to move on. When I eventually gave up and returned after getting the Drifter's Cloak, I still missed the modeled Scar NPC. Dude was dead when I eventually found him. The same thing happened in the sprawling Citadel. I completely missed the White Ward area of it until a colleague of mine mentioned how helpful the injector band found within was for boss fights. The Citadel was just so huge that even after getting the key required for the lift down, I had completely forgotten about the elevator. As a result, this sheer overwhelming size and lack of structure made Pharloom a lot more mysterious and dare I say magical, the same way Disneyland is equal parts magical and overwhelming to an 8-year-old, because there was always something new to discover. Team Cherry actually sets a cheeky precedent to the overwhelming nature of Silksong right at the beginning of the game by including a secret within a secret. Where Hornet crash lands, you can jump up to the right to find a hidden area. However, there's another hidden area inside that one. It's almost as if they were warning us. You're not going to find everything the first time by yourself. You're going to get overwhelmed trying to do so. Good luck. I don't think I'm the only one that felt this way. I tapped into these overwhelming moments of almost feeling lost over at Gamer Guides, putting out a video on the different ways to trigger Act 2. Defeat the last judge after clearing the blasted steps, or take the back route through the mist and defeat the Phantom. This video shows that a lot of people had some anxiety around finishing Act 1. Whether that was because they worried they missed something important, if Act 2 wouldn't allow them to backtrack, if defeating the Phantom locks them out of the last judge fight, and so on, because that video is one of the best performing we've had on a small guides-focused YouTube channel, hitting near 130k views at the time of writing this script. Really compounding this was the lack of early copies for media outlets, including the ones I write for. I actually think it was a good thing Team Cherry neglected to hand out early codes because it kind of created this unique situation where everyone was on the same page from day one for one of the biggest releases of 2025. More and more, only large outlets are getting advanced copies, which are kind of consolidating coverage at the top, but that and how reliant gaming media is on guide work is a topic for another video. A lot of people these days, including myself, rely on guides when we get stuck or too overwhelmed in a sprawling game like Silksong, especially because it lacks a clear structure toward completion. I don't think I used any guides for Metroid Dread, for instance, nor did I need one to 100% complete Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown or Nine Souls. But with Silksong, minor spoilers for Act 3 here, I could not for the life of me find the way to the Pollen Heart despite the quest marker on my map. The hint given by the Void Bugs led me to the Shellwood, but from both the Shellwood and Blasted Steps I could find no discernible entrance. So I looked it up to learn that you have to silk soar from just inside the Citadel's Grand Gate, an area I hadn't visited for a couple dozen hours of playtime because Pharloom is just so massive. For some, resorting to a guide like this might cause frustration because they want to figure it out for themselves. I can understand that feeling. When I did figure out stuff like this on my own, like discovering an early route to the Wormways to unlock the Wanderer's Crest or stumbling upon the entrance to the Putrefied Ducts, I felt like an absolute genius. I mean, if I didn't have a young daughter and was 10 to 15 years younger, I would have made uncovering every square centimeter of Silksong my life for like 2 sleepless weeks and avoided a guide altogether. But because the Pokemon Company doesn't give out many early copies either, I really have to prepare for coverage of Pokemon Legends ZA for a couple of different outlets and for some videos here on my channel, so like and subscribe if you want to see those. I just don't have the time to keep playing Silksong at a leisurely pace, so a cheeky peek at the amazing interactive map my colleagues at Gamer Guides whipped up, and that I stole for the thumbnail, stopped the overwhelming nature of Silksong together with the impending release of Legends ZA from bubbling over into frustration. That said, when Silksong released, no one had the option of using a guide when getting lost in Hunter's March or hitting a wall while fighting Morwing. In fact, that was another pain point I targeted at Gamer Guides and put out a little short on how to skip the Morwing fight by finding the first 5 fleas. A technique we all know now but was relatively unknown a few days post-launch. I think this lack of guides led to a lot of the complaints we saw online in those early days. The less masochistic among us were overwhelmed and ended up frustrated rather than seeing Silksong as a steep challenge to overcome simply because they had nowhere to turn when stuck. It seems like many people were just too overwhelmed with Silksong and quit early, or just wanted to finish, dropping out after seeing the Weaver Queen ending at the end of Act 2. Just over 1 month after release, only 20% of people have finished the final boss of Act 3 as of when I wrote this script, while only 30% have defeated Grandmother Silk at least once according to Steam achievements. I wonder what percentage of those used guides to get there. Anyway, I haven't even gotten into how there are 48 different bosses that all require you to learn their moveset before they go Super Saiyan and throw a new one at you halfway through the fight. Each one can be equal parts overwhelming and rewarding. Like, the entire third act is basically an ultra difficult unique boss gauntlet outside of some new side quests. For example, I struggled against Scarsinger Carmelita, feeling overwhelmed at first with how she threw those discs about and seemingly blocked most attacks. However, when I did take her down, it became one of the most rewarding and memorable moments of Silksong for me. A complete triumph over those damn ants that terrorized me early in the game, if you will. This overwhelmingness even extends into uncovering the lore of Pharloom. On the surface, I understand what happened to Pharloom more or less. The Weavers sealed Grandmother Silk, the final boss of Act 2 and the source of their power, in a cocoon atop the Citadel, but she kind of half broke free and killed the Weavers off and enslaved everyone else through what's called the Haunting. Hornet arrives as a captive and begins obtaining Weaver powers in order to take Grandmother Silk down and free Pharloom. Many civilizations within Pharloom were displaced by either the Weavers or Grandmother Silk, or both, before all this. And that's what you guide Hornet through, civilizations ruined by the might of the Citadel or the Haunting. There's likely quite a lot of NPCs and lore I missed out on, breaking quest chains and the like as I explored, and I know there's at least one unique boss to the Steel Soul difficulty that I will never attempt in order to maintain my sanity. That would be too overwhelming. Going deeper into all the lore and NPCs will be the subject of YouTube video essays for years to come, but not mine. That in itself is an overwhelming task that I don't want to or think I could take on. Though I do want to do a little narrative critique of Silksong if I have the time this week. So again, like and subscribe if you want to see that. And yeah, that's about all I have to say about Silksong being overwhelming. I loved almost every minute of exploring Pharloom, even if I didn't appreciate Hornet's traversal kit as much as most of you did, according to my last video. It was overwhelming in the most positive sense of the word, and now that I've run through it mostly blind, I can't wait to pick up another copy for my Nintendo Switch 2 to bring along with me the next time I travel for a much more chill experience. I love games like Silksong that meld together an insane number of secrets with a steep difficulty that make it truly overwhelming, but in turn ensure it's incredibly rewarding to chip away at. It allows the experience to maintain a sense of mystery that there's always more to discover, that even if you replay it for the 5th time, you might find a new little nook with a lore tablet or an NPC in a location you've never seen them hanging out in before. That kind of thing. Fair warning, gonna talk about a couple different ending spoilers here. There's that Twisted Child ending that requires you to defeat Grandmother Silk while infected with a Twisted Bud, though you can't heal. I would have never discovered that on my own without the internet spoiling it for me, really. There's also apparently an NPC called Mr. Mushroom that triggers a secret ending too. I haven't looked into it yet, but man, I love all this stuff. Even if I was overwhelmed when stepping out of the Moss Grotto for the first time into this massive journey through Pharloom. This all comes together to create one of the more memorable and unique experiences of 2025 that many of us won't forget anytime soon. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Did you also find Silksong an overwhelmingly good time? Like an overexcited child at Disneyland? Or were you maybe more chill about it and think I've worked myself up too much? Either way, let me know in the comments below what you thought. Thanks, bye!